Hey everybody, good morning. It is day 128 of spiritual healthcare, so welcome. I'm hoping that we are not going to get interrupted by the Canada emergency alert thing, but if we do, then I'm just going to shut it down and start again. Anyway, good morning, and it is the day before the American Thanksgiving. I know I've had a lot of people wishing me a happy Thanksgiving and whatnot, but it is not Thanksgiving here. It was Thanksgiving here last month in October. So good morning, everybody. Good morning to Kaz and to Marge and to everybody joining us. How are you? I hope you guys are having a really, really great couple of weeks. It is good. It's just good to see everybody. It's good to see you all. It's good to see you all. As I say, happy Thanksgiving to all the American listeners and viewers. I hope you guys are going to have a great day tomorrow. I know there's so much going on. There's so many restrictions right now. Alberta just came under a whole bunch of new restrictions last night, which everybody's having a fit over because all the schools are racing to keep up with compliance. So there's been a lot going on. So welcome everybody. I hope you guys had a great week. I hope you guys have made some Thanksgiving plans, even if they're weird this year. I hope you guys have something going on. There's been lots going on here, and I've been in talks with a number of different people. I did a great podcast recently on the Paracast, who are some of my favorite people to do interviews with, and did a great panel with a fellow by the name of David J. Halperin. For those of you who don't know him, he is a ufologist and has been a scholar from Berkeley, and is a very, very interesting guy to talk to, and talks about the emotional and impact and influence and reality creating of UFOs. So it's sort of the mirror subject of what we talk about here on spiritual healthcare. And it was a very, very interesting panel. So it's on the Entity Seeker, entityseeker.ca. If you guys go to media and video, the interview is listed there. It's this month's version of the issue of the Paracast, and it was a really, really, really fun panel to do. I know I've had a few people ask me about UFOs over the last number of months of us doing this, so I'm going to talk about that today, as well as answer a great question that came in about creating reality and about the mirror universe. What the hell is going on with the mirror universe, right? So we're going to talk about all of that today. Lots of stuff, as I say, lots of stuff going on over the last little while with, of course, with the election, and I know there's been a lot of controversy, there's been a lot of upheaval in the U.S., and then, of course, everybody's asking, well, what if? What if there was a different result in another reality or another world, or what is, or is there substance to all of that? So we're going to chat about that today. And I found, because it is Thanksgiving tomorrow in the U.S., I found some really interesting things, and I'm going to bring them up here because I thought this was really cool. Articles about superstitions and holidays, including Thanksgiving. And there are some really interesting ones out there. I don't know if you guys have heard of these or not. There were some brand new ones for me. I know you guys have talked about, of course, and everybody knows the breaking of the wishbone, right? But there's more. There's more. So one being that if you bake a loaf of bread, get a load of this, if you bake a loaf of bread and your bread comes out with air bubbles, which most bread does, right? You break it open and there's air bubbles. There are certain portions of the world that believes that hole actually symbolizes a coffin and you are going to die. I know, that's crazy. But it's really, really interesting. Some of these get very weird. Eggs and eggshells is another one. Cracking open a double yolked egg means good luck and possibly somebody's going to get pregnant in the family. And in seafaring folklore, that if you don't crush up your eggshells after eating a hard-boiled egg, a witch could come and use it to fly over ships in order to sink them. So as some of them get so interesting, so weird, So you're going to be cooking your Thanksgiving dinner and you're going to be thinking about this, I swear. I'm sorry, but garlic, of course, we can lean into the whole idea of vampires and garlic defeating vampires. And of course, salt, spilling salt. So the spilling salt one has actually got a really interesting narrative behind it, and it goes back a long, long way. It actually goes back to Judas. I know, right back to the Bible times, the idea that we spill, we spill salt and it's bad luck and you have to throw a pinch of it over your shoulder. It was believed that Judas stood behind an overturned salt cellar when he planned to betray Jesus. And that's where the spilled salt superstition comes from. It's all the way back there in the Bible. So throwing salt over your shoulder is supposed to, eliminate devilish influences or anything like that. So it's really interesting. So there's so many superstitions that sit around things like Thanksgiving, and of course people are falling back more and more on the idea of fortune telling and Thanksgiving and things like that, which is I think something we have to be very, very cautious of. I wrote a article, or I guess it's more than an article, an essay, I guess, for Haunted Magazine, which will be coming out in the next few months. If you guys want to subscribe to Haunted Magazine, by the way, it's haunteddigitalmagazine.com. I've been getting a lot of questions about that recently. Where can they get the magazine and that kind of thing? I'm a regular contributor to the magazine, but haunteddigitalmagazine.com is where you want to go for that. So. And you can get it both digitally and in physical print copy. So anyway, I wrote this article about psychics and fortune tellers and the dangers behind the addiction to that kind of thing. And it became a very interesting journey because I was really looking into where it started, where the religious stance starts. Marge was saying salt is used in homes to calm down paranormal activity. That's another superstition, right? We put down salt or we use salt or something like that to appease the spirits or something like that. Yet again, another superstition. In some religions, I want to say it's voodoo, I think, where they use brick dust to block enemies from coming in their homes and things like that. You put down brick dust. So lots of superstitions around psychics and fortune tellers. And the idea of fortune telling has really taken a lot of forms over the years, everything from tarot, cartomancy, palmistry, pendulum readings, all sorts of things. And in some places, it's actually illegal to charge money for psychic services. So I believe in the UK, I think it's illegal there. I'm pretty sure in New York it's illegal there. You can't charge money because it turns into a whole scam issue. So mainly in the 19th and 20th centuries, concepts like the I Ching began to infiltrate Western culture as a means of basically reading fortunes and whatnot. But it was strictly forbidden in religions like Islam, Christianity, Judaism, all of that. They're like, no, you're not allowed to do that. Any sort of divination practices were just not seen as a good thing. So it tied into a question that Dan had sent in a little while ago, which was, what does creating our reality mean to other aspects of the paranormal world? And I think so many people lean into this idea that, if they can get control over their environment, if they know what's going to happen, it gives us a feeling of peace, right? Because when we don't have that feeling of, oh my God, we don't know what's going to happen next, we get the illusion of control. We get the illusion that we can have predictability and that we know what's going to happen. So what I wanted to basically cover today was that need, first of all, that we all have to know what the future is going to bring, to have that predictability. But what I've discovered is that when I was writing this article, the people that became seriously addicted to fortune telling, and I mean like couldn't make a decision without calling a psychic or seeking some otherworldly connection and confirmation to their decision, was a distinct lack of clarity, which seems really obvious on the forefront of everything. Well, of course they don't have clarity, or they wouldn't be asking. But how people finish that prompt of "I am" really does play a crucial role with this. I am is really the creative force in the universe. But how we finish that sentence really does speak a truth over our life. And I think what people don't realize is that when we come to creating reality, we come to fortune telling, and we come to all of this type of thing, we forget about the central power that we have, that we are the ones that are creating the experiences around us. So how does this all play into the rest of the paranormal world? We see it, of course, with psychic addictions. We see it with, all of these things. But when I was talking with David Halperin on the panel on Paracast, we had a really interesting discussion about UFOs and abductions and people that have cited UFOs that in mass groups and things like that. I personally believe that we are going to find something out in space at some point. I really do. I think thinking that we don't have something else out there is like taking a cup of water or a cup and dipping it into the ocean and looking in the cup and thinking, oh, well, there's no sharks in the ocean because there's no shark in my cup, right? So I really think that we are going to find something at some point. Whether they want to talk to us, though, is a whole that's a whole nother ball game, right? I don't know. I think if I was an alien, I think as like in a UFO, I think I would sort of fly by Earth at this point and just like lock my door and keep going. I don't know. That's me. I don't know. If I was an alien, I think that's where I'd be right now. We'll come back. We'll stop by on the drive back. Like it'd be one of those situations. So I think as I say, we forget that some of the stuff that we talk about on spiritual healthcare really does translate into things like abduction cases and UFOs and whatnot. And it's something I had not considered until I did this panel on the Paracast. And David Halperin's argument is that many of the abduction occurrences and things like that will mirror the person's state of mind, state of being. And I thought this was really, really interesting, and it got me back to a case from Culver City, California, in the 1970s with a lady by the name of Doris Blither, who ended up, there was a film that was made about Doris Blither called The Entity, and a book by Frank DeFelita, who ended up, it became a very famous book called The Entity as well. And she was claiming that she was being attacked and raped by this entity or these three entities. And when a good friend of mine, Dr. Barry Taff, ended up investigating the case, what he discovered was that her relationship with her sons was very much mirrored in these attacks, these alleged attacks that were going on. And David Halperin, very interestingly enough, has discovered the same pattern within aliens and alien abduction cases. So it was very interesting. So how does this creating our own reality, how does it actually pertain to other aspects of the paranormal? And I think we can see these different patterns, within these, these isolated cases. And then when we start to look at it as sort of a macrocosm, we can begin to see this stuff lining up as well. So his book is called The Intimate Alien, and he's sending me a copy, which is so kind of him. But it was really intriguing. I think there's stuff in ufology that I think has yet to be explained. Things like the cattle mutilations and whatnot, where they're finding cow carcasses in trees and things like that. I mean, we look at places like Skinwalker Ranch and in Utah, in the Uinta Basin. And there's some absolutely bizarre footage that's coming out of Skinwalker Ranch and a number of others that relates to cattle and UFO phenomenon, things like that. So I definitely think there's a lot more to be looking into that's on the external. I definitely don't think that it's something that's completely, all in our heads or something like that. But the relationship again to the type of experiences that we have and the frequency that we're resonating on, I think is still there. It's still present. That universal law does not stop just because we've changed subject matters. Just in the same way, if we're having negative experience with a haunting, moving outside of that and looking at other relationships in our experience, or past traumas and things like that, all still factors in. It doesn't mean it's in your head. It just means that there's something going on within you, and you're getting a mirrored experience. So it was very interesting. It was a great Paracast. As I say, very, very intriguing. So I ended up, as I went through this article and was, writing through this article, and writing the notes about it and things like that, I began to realize a couple of things about the idea of probability. And I think oftentimes the purpose is often in the process. And it comes back to what I was saying before about the I am. How are we finishing that sentence? And how we finish that sentence directly ties into the probabilities that we then have access to. If you're turning around and saying constantly, I'm sick of where I am, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm depressed, those words have power. And when they then turn around and want the promotion without the process, the people that are seeking these answers, they are kind of destined to get the same thing again. It doesn't really change. Stephanie and I, when we were doing experiments with tarot cards early on, when the two of us decided to really start digging our hands into the paranormal, and I'll tell you something that we found that was really interesting. So we had this concept, we had this idea, and we had multiple tarot decks at that point. We had the Thoth deck, we had the Hermetic deck, we had a bunch of them. And what we would do is we would get ourselves into a certain headspace, certain mindset. Say, think of something that made us really, really happy, or something that made us, really depressed, or whatever. But we'd get into that vibration, whatever it was, whatever we picked. And what was really interesting was that when we would do the card readings, and we'd shuffle the hell out of these cards, and we would put them down on the table, and every single time the reading would reflect the emotional state that we were in. If we were in a depressed state and we did a reading, the reading was, you're going to lose your job, it's there's death, there's there was negative stuff in the reading that was undeniable. For those of you guys who don't do tarot, if you get an inversed card, oftentimes the inversed cards tend to be negative. If you get one that's upside down, and you'd get a bunch of inversed cards, you'd get it was intense. And the opposite would happen if you got really happy. So the probabilities changed, and I always thought that was a really interesting metaphor, and I don't think that was an accident, by the way. That when you turn around and you take your life and you think about that like a tarot deck, right? And then you spread it out, you are giving yourself your own reading. So if you're turning around and saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to go into my day and I'm going to be, this negative cow and be really miserable, you are opening yourself up to this set of probabilities. Once you change that vibration around, you change that energy, you do your next, reading, and bam, you've opened yourself up to a bunch of new probabilities again. And it was so consistent that, as I say, Steph and I, we made note of it, and we tried this again for, I don't know, we probably did 100, 200 readings like this. And it was very consistent. So if you guys have tarot or anything like that, or do cartomancy or anything like that, give it a try. You're going to find it really intriguing, because it's very consistent. It comes up very consistently. So it's as I say, really, really, really intriguing. And I think when we start to look at this idea of mirror universes and these different probabilities, we do have to realize that I think, we have the probability in every single situation. in every single paranormal encounter, every single, encounter we have with other people, with the universe, all of that, we have the ability to thrive within it by the way we come into it and approach it. And it really doesn't have anything to do with circumstances. We like to think that it does. My friend John Taffer, who wrote a fantastic book called Don't Bullshit Yourself. If you guys have not read that, read it, because it's brilliant and it's very helpful. The links and the information in it, it's not just it's not just a self-help book. It's actually a book that will move you forward with resources and all of that as well. So John Taffer wrote this great book, Don't Bullshit Yourself. And what was interesting was that he busted through many of the excuses that we do give. Everything from finances to not enough resources to all of those things that we tell ourselves, or I'm too tired, or I'm too old, or I'm too, and really he takes it and shows you from his aligned perspective where the probabilities are and how many paths there are to actually do this. There was a really great experiment that went on at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and this was so interesting to me because Oak Ridge, they are famous for their particle experiments, and we'll talk about this a little bit on a physics level. And they wanted to experiment with the idea that there were other probabilities, that time didn't make a difference. And they basically took 1,000 particles that were just roaming around. They were just doing their own thing. And at their highest complexity, the particles were basically spread away from each other. So they were almost exploring, right? They're exploring their universe. They're looking around in some way. So they interacted, of course, still with all the laws of the universe, gravity and all of those things. And what was interesting was that the simulation was designed to be a representation of our universe. So it was complex and, but everything was just reduced down, basically, okay? So what was really interesting was that eventually these particles hit the point where they would have a representation or a similar effect as to what the Big Bang was. And so the particles were really close together and they crowded around and it was getting ready to pop. And what they were expecting was these particles to pop into a linear path, right? There's only supposed to be one way it could go, and they didn't. They broke into two. And one floated away in one direction, the other floated away into another one. And the points were a representation, even though this was a small experiment, a representation of the real world. You'd think that there was only one path. There wasn't. There was more than one. It basically implied that they had formed two separate universes. Okay, it was a mirror of the other one. So the experiment was really an attempt to understand things like time, and the arrow of time, I think, is such a present and persistent mystery when it comes to our universe, how we're looking at the world, and things like that. But I think what was important about this was that the laws like relativity, electrodynamics, all of that they don't have a preference. Okay, they don't care, they don't care where time flows or how time flows, and nor are they dictated by which way time flows. Time has nothing to do with it. So it really showed that not only is that gravity alone could result in us perceiving a certain direction in time, because it can, but it showed that we actually aren't the only observers either. That time could be moving backwards, or would be moving backwards on a second path, or what we would perceive as backwards, and that the universe could actually have a second future, a second probability. And I think there are billions of probabilities, and we get to choose which one we get to focus on. So I wanted to, hopefully we didn't break everybody's brain over that, I thought it was the most fascinating thing. And I think it really does come down again to this idea of focus. So, Jesse Elder, a great philosopher, if any of you, follow him on Instagram or anything like that, came up with a great analogy for this that won't make everybody's brain blow up. And he described it like you're standing in a house with a billion different rooms. Okay, so picture yourself standing in a really cool looking house, a billion different rooms, and you are focusing on something, or you're focusing to the point where you're feeling it emotionally, and that begins to narrow down the signal that you're broadcasting, and those other rooms that don't match those signals start to collapse. So boom, 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 those rooms start to collapse until only the probabilities, the rooms that match your vibrational state of being, are open. And eventually you refine it and refine it and refine it so much that the room that you're standing in matches the vibration, matches the reality, matches the probabilities that you're going to get. And I thought that was a really great way of looking at it. And it's a little less mind-numbing. I love that. So very interesting. And as I say, I think the way we put things out into the universe, how we are focusing, where we're putting our attention, all of that, it really, really does count in other areas of the paranormal. I don't think this just applies to one area of our life. I think this applies to every area in our life. And the conversation I had on the Paracast definitely began to align some of that for me when I started to hear David Halpern's work with UFOs. So it was really cool. And as I say, if you guys want to listen to that panel, check it out. It is on entityseeker.ca in the media video section. It's just audio, but it was the Paracast interview of this month, November. So the audio link is there if you guys want it. It was really cool. Anyway, being that it was Thanksgiving tomorrow, you guys have Thanksgiving tomorrow, I found a really great passage from Jan Van Zandt's Faith in the Valley that I wanted to read to you guys because I thought it was great. And I hope you guys will enjoy it too. So check this out. You are blessed. It may not look or feel that way right now, but it's true. If you want to know how blessed you are, think back to a situation you thought was right for you and admit how wrong you were. Ouch. At the time, you may not have realized that you were growing. There was no way to know back then that something bigger and better was on the other side of something painful, ugly, and uncomfortable. Now look where you are and remember where you were. Realize that where you are right now is not where you are going to be at some time in the near future. Whether you love or hate it, your current condition is only temporary. All probabilities, guys. Whether you do the best you can, give what you have to give, and remember, you are still growing. You are learning. In fact, you are earning new degrees of wisdom. Sure, you have some grief. You will have some fears. You might even have bouts of pain and sadness. However, just around the corner from where you are, you will be able to look back and see how truly blessed you are. Something to think about for Thanksgiving tomorrow. Thanksgiving tomorrow. So happy Thanksgiving to all the Americans again. Canada had this always messes up Americans. I don't know what it is, but Canada has we have our Thanksgiving in October. So our Thanksgiving is done. But we're all celebrating with the Americans anyway. So I want to give you guys some of our peace affirmations before we go today. So everybody take a big breath. I am a channel of peace and well-being, and my need for peace is abundantly met. I unconditionally accept, love, and appreciate myself and who I am. I recognize and am grateful for the abundance that is constantly flowing into my life, which I can choose to allow or not. I feel with every breath a sense of peace and love. I help others by maintaining and tending to my connection with Source as much as possible. This well-being is accessible to me, even in a sea of uncertainty. And at this moment, all is well. I am able to liberate myself from my past and live with peace and serenity. I can see and appreciate all the beauty and abundance of the life around me. I'm able to embrace love while letting go of fear. and I find peace with the soothing silence of my inner being. And everybody take a breath. If you guys have more questions for spiritual health care for next week, send them in. Email me, send them in. It always takes me a little bit sometimes to get to emails and stuff like that. I've got a lot going on at the moment on a personal level here, so I'm getting to emails when I can. But I love getting them. I love getting your emails, so please keep sending them. And have an amazing happy Thanksgiving. Sally says happy Thanksgiving as well. You too. I hope you guys have a really great day tomorrow, and just enjoy. Find things to appreciate. This is a good year to find things to be grateful for, because sometimes it can be pretty hard when you're looking around and all this crazy is going on. So we'll see you guys next week, next Wednesday, spiritual healthcare, and of course, for those of you guys who are new, all of the classes can be found on youtube.com/entityseeker or at entityseeker.ca. All of them are there. You can go back on all 128 classes of spiritual healthcare. So, and a bunch of other videos too. There's some of my live shows, which I so miss doing, as well as some of my firework and whatnot. My partner and I do, he does music and I do fire and whatnot, and we have a blast with that. So anyway, have a wonderful Thanksgiving, guys, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.